It's 11:59 at Gun Owners Radio, and this is the Penn Patriot, music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, and another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind American lines, this is your song.
Of the week.
Our gun truth of the week. This is where we take some kind of gun truth or some kind of factoid or something that has to do with gun ownership that you're not going to hear from the mainstream media. In fact, a lot of the times we are debunking something you'll hear in mainstream media and news. And a common myth perpetuated by anti-gun folks is that the U.S. has the highest gun murder rate in the world. Check out the clip.
One lawmaker saying Americans are more than 20 times more likely to die from gun violence than people who live in Europe.
So it's just simply not true. The U.S. does have a higher gun homicide rate than most other developed nations, but it is far from the highest in the world. Countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, like Honduras and El Salvador and Venezuela, even Brazil and Jamaica, have significantly higher firearm homicide rates, often much higher than the U.S. In fact, if you've watched Active Self-Protection, you've noticed that many of their videos come from Brazil and other parts of South America. Now, what usually happens is that critics use selective comparisons, and they compare the U.S. only to Western Europe or only to Australia, rather than the world as a whole. So yes, the racism and elitism of considering yourself better than those who look different from you is alive and well in the anti-gun community. So they look at other nations where people look like us rather than comparing us to other nations throughout the world, which there are, around 200 countries. But they just look at the ones, they cherry pick the ones where, people most look like Americans. They leave out the places that are really, truly dangerous who have no Second Amendment. So this makes the U.S. stand out, even though in a broader global context, it isn't the worst by a long shot. We weren't number one. In fact, if you look at countries and their statistics when it comes to who's killed when a gun is used, we're not even in the top 10. From the Southwest Journal, based on United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime data, so that's the UN numbers, we're not even in the top 10. Top 10, or top number one is El Salvador. They're the worst. Venezuela, Guatemala, Colombia, Honduras, Brazil, Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, U.S. Virgin Islands, Mexico. The United States isn't even in the top 10. In fact, we're not even in the top 25. And that's all according to the United Nations. But still, there's this myth that, we're the worst when it comes to gun violence. The reality is we are relatively a safe country, and part of that has to do with the fact that we can protect ourselves if we need to. Self-defense is and will continue to be a human right that each of us deserve. So like we've said before, get a gun, get training, get a permit, and carry everywhere you can. And that is your gun truth of the week. Does those stats, does that surprise you, Alicia?
No, it doesn't. Of course not.
Yeah.
No, you know what's ironic though is you look at this. A lot of these places in the top 10 even are just our neighbor or near neighbors or flow through neighbors. So if anything.
Does it surprise you that they take these numbers and distort them?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. No.
Yeah. So stop using your distorted stats to try to ban my right to self-defense. Okay, it's time for our Q&A section. People email me, they text me, they call me and ask questions all the time. They want to know all kinds of different questions on gun ownership, on how to transport firearms, on what to do, what's the best this, that, or the other thing. And I've found that if people are asking a question, then usually many people want to know the answer to it. So we answer them here on Gun Owners Radio so that you can hear the answer. You can be an even better educated gun owner Not attorneys, not necessarily experts on every subject, but we do our best to tell you what we know and at least try to give you the resources you need to move forward with whatever you're attempting to do. So you know just a little bit more about gun ownership. Okay, so today's question. Hi, Michael. I'm a member of SDCGO. Thank you so much for being a member of San Diego County Gun Owners. You've helped me in the past with CCW. I'm going on my third renewal. Congratulations to that. My question is, if I wanted to transport firearms from another state back to California via plane, what would that entail? I have an assortment of handguns that my family bought through the years, and I want to bring them back to my home in San Diego. Thank you, M. We'll call him M. M, thanks for the question, and thank you for being a member of San Diego County Gun Owners. Thanks for watching Gun Owners Radio. So there's a lot of pieces to this, and we don't have all the information. So we're going to try to address this as generally as possible. First off, let's talk about the nuts and bolts of transporting firearms. What I do, and they specifically talked about an airplane. They're flying in an airplane. What I do is I find the section on the website of the airline where I'm flying where they address firearms specifically. And I print it out, and I even take a highlighter and highlight it, and I fold it up, and I put it in my pocket, and I take it with me to the airport just in case there's some kind of discrepancy or misunderstanding, or maybe the person working the airline line is new or whatever. I can bust it out and politely say, hey, you know what? Actually, your airline says this on their website. I've never actually had to use it. It just seems like a really good best practice, especially post 9/11, especially lately when you're trying to travel. It just seems like a really good best practice to have the rules, regulations, laws, policies, etc. at your fingertips when you're doing this. Now, when you transport a firearm, it needs to be completely unloaded. It needs to be in a locked, hard side container, and it needs to go into your checked baggage, not your carry-on. The ammunition tends to request that the ammunition is separate, or at least in a separate container. And then the magazines are out of the firearms, and the magazines are empty. That's a best practice. You want to lock it with a good secure lock. You want to declare it immediately. Hey, I'm traveling. Here's my ID, and I have an unloaded, locked firearm that I'm checking. They'll direct you from there. I'm not going to go into specifics because I'll be honest, I've transported firearms on an airplane multiple times, and the actual process and procedure after declaring it has been a little different every time.
It varies on the airport.
Yeah, it varies on the airport, on the employee, on the airline. Sometimes they want to check it right then and there. Sometimes they want you to take it over to TSA. Sometimes they don't want either of those things. So just follow their instructions, be polite, and have their policy printed out is probably the best thing to do. Now, once you get to California, that's a whole different process. Once you bring a firearm into California, you have 60 days to register it. And you can do that on CFARS, which is the California DOJ's website. That's their software that they use, their program that they use to do a number of things. But you want to register. You have 60 days to do that. You're going to need a firearms safety certificate in order to register. Yep. So, but there's a whole lot of other stuff. I don't know what magazines you're trying to bring into California, but if they're over 10 rounds, technically you cannot transport them into California. I don't know exactly what kind of firearm or pistol it is, but does it comply with California the assault weapons ban? Now, one thing that is a source of confusion, I don't know, Alicia, if you've run into this too, it doesn't matter if it's on the handgun roster or not.
Right.
The handgun roster only restricts what FFLs can sell to strangers.
Correct. That's why you can purchase through a private party transfer something off roster, because the roster only limits what the shops and the FFLs can sell.
Right. It doesn't limit what you can own or if you can bring a firearm in from out of state. Now, it says here that he seems to indicate that he owns these firearms. He just owns them out of state. Okay, fine. I can't really go into much more detail on that because I don't know the specifics. But if this is something you've inherited, then you're going to want to do an interfamilial transfer, also through CFARS. if it's a gift, then you have to make sure it's a legitimate gift, and you're not paying someone to give you a gift. So there are other considerations, but with the information that we have here, I think the important points we want to make is transport it correctly, which means unloaded and locked in a hard-sided container, and you declare it and show them the policies of their own airline. And then the other thing is, once you bring a firearm into California, you have to have a safe firearms cert, and then you have to declare it. You have 60 days to declare it.
And the thing about the lock, by the way, I'd like to just detail this is a common question that I get, is when you fly, do you have to have a TSA-approved lock locking your case, or do you have to have a TSA-approved lockbox to fly? The answer is no. The answer is no. You can if you choose to. If you choose not to, you're within your rights to do so. Pros and cons both ways. If you choose to have a TSA lock, that means that TSA, if they want to, can get in there at any point in time. If they want to investigate or look at what you have in there, they can do that. And they can do that without your permission and without your presence. If you choose not to go with a TSA lock, that means if they want to get in there and they want to see or inspect, they have to call you to come and open it. So
there you go.
That's it.
And I think the last thing we'll add is a best practice. Go through everything. Go through your carry-on. Go through your checked. Make sure you don't have loose bullets hanging out somewhere, or
Casings, even empty casings.
Empty casings. Yep. Clean it up. Make sure that there are no questions, that there's nothing weird or suspicious. Basically, you just don't want to cause some TSA agent or some airline employee to get nervous when they really there's nothing to get nervous about. I've also heard of people who use their range bag as a carry-on, or maybe they use their carry-on as a range bag, and they'll forget and just kind of, they'll leave something in a pocket that they didn't even think about, up to and including firearms. They go, oh my gosh, this is the bag I used to go to the range with, and I forgot that I keep my pistol in there, and they go and try to, bring it to the airport.
Even an empty magazine.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Just go through, do one final check, pull everything out, make sure that you're traveling safely and with everything that you should, and you've taken out everything you don't want to travel with. So there you go. There's your answer to the question.
Remember that we are not lawyers, and nothing that we say is to be taken as legal advice. Our sponsor, John Dillon, is a lawyer, and he has been helping to fight those gun violence restraining orders, GVROs, and more. So if you know somebody that's had their self-defense rights taken away without due process, give John a call. His website is dillonlawgp.com, and his phone number is 760-642-7150.
Okay, we have a legal update for you. We have a bill that unfortunately is bad news. And, a couple weeks ago, we actually reported that AB 1127, which people know as the Glock Ban, this is California's attempt to ban every single Glock in California. We reported that, hey, it went to the suspense file, and we even talked about what the suspense file is. And basically what that normally means is that it is good as dead. And that was what we were reporting, and that was accurate at the time. Unfortunately, this past week, it came back to life. How did that happen? Well, I want to explain exactly what's going on. So once it hits the suspense file, as we reported last week, basically the Senate or the Assembly, they have a smaller committee that just gives bills that are in the suspense file a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It's not a big discussion once it hits the suspense file. It's either yes or no. And, usually it's no. Once it hits the suspense file, it's as good as dead in a lot of cases, particularly with a bill as complicated as AB 1127. There's a lot going on in AB 1127. I mean, it's a very extreme bill. It bans every single Glock in the state of California. You will no longer be able to purchase Glocks in California, every single model. And then even some non-Glocks that share some of the engineering similarities that Glock has. And we've gone into that. It has to do with the cross-shaped piece of the Glock, the firing mechanism. But here's what we need to talk about. So they had the meeting in the suspense file, and at first pass, they just ignored it. They said, okay, this is done, which is normally what happens. But then something interesting happened. There was an amendment made to AB 1127. And after that amendment was made, they voted on sending it back to the floor, meaning sending it back to the Senate so that they vote from the floor to approve it or not approve it. And because it's amended, it also has to go back to the Assembly. And now both the Senate and the Assembly can vote on this concurrently or at the same time. But it's now out of the suspense file and has been put in front of the state Senate and the Assembly. Now, they haven't voted on it yet. They could vote on it any day. They have about another week or two to decide to vote for it, and they're going to vote on it. But they have another week or two to decide whether or not they're going to vote for or against it. But here's the story. What was that amendment? Well, the amendment was that they are exempting law enforcement officers. So in the original bill, they exempted departments. So if you were, San Diego Police Department or Orange County Sheriff's Department, you don't have to worry about you can still get Glocks. But now this amendment actually exempts individual officers. So if you are a cop, you can still own your Glock. You can still purchase Glocks. You're completely exempt from this law. What did that do? Well, it made the unions, the representatives of law enforcement say, okay, we don't care about this bill anymore. We no longer oppose this bill. Now, is that posted somewhere? It's not posted somewhere. You have to read through and see exactly what's going on here. So once law enforcement no longer opposes this, well, then a lot more people feel safe about voting for it, even these extremist anti-gunners in Sacramento. This is yet another example of law enforcement in California completely selling out Second Amendment, and things were getting better. And I want to be clear on something. When I say law enforcement, I'm not talking about your buddy, deputy so-and-so or sergeant such and such. I know that we have a lot of law enforcement professionals who are very pro-Second Amendment. We're talking about their representatives, their legal representatives, their unions. Now, a lot of them say, oh, no, it's not a union, it's an association or whatever. Call it what you will. But we're talking about the group that goes up to Sacramento and fights for higher pay and better retirement and that sort of thing. But what they don't fight for, your Second Amendment rights. And time again, the trick has been, hey, we're just going to exempt cops, and then we don't have to worry about them. Because law enforcement unions and associations put a lot of money into getting people elected. So the people who vote want to make sure, hey, am I going to lose that money in my next election? Am I going to lose their support in my next election? And it used to be, and I got to tell you, not so much anymore, but it used to be that people really cared about what these law enforcement associations and unions said and did. They were pro-cop. They were pro-law enforcement. So they'd say, hey, if law enforcement wants it, it must be good. I think I could easily make the case in the last 5-10 years, people care a lot less about that. In fact, sometimes it's a strike against them, but they're still powerful. They're still well-funded, and they still spend a lot of money. So I'm not saying that you should, yell at your buddy who's a cop, and that your cop buddy is anti-Second Amendment simply because he or she is a cop. What I am saying is that the people representing them absolutely do not care about your Second Amendment rights and will sell you and your Second Amendment rights down the river if it benefits them in any way. So what I'm encouraging you to do is go to your law enforcement friend, or if you are law enforcement, whether you're active now or you're retired, you got to go to your association, you got to go to your union, you got to go to your reps and tell them, hey, man, this just isn't okay. It's just not okay. And I don't know, maybe once this thing passes, which, by the way, pretty convinced it has the votes to pass now. So I do think AB 1127 will pass in the next week or two, could be any day. But, and yes, there's going to be a lawsuit. Lawsuit's going to be expensive. Yes, it's unconstitutional. I'm sure we'll prevail, but now we got to raise $1 million. At least. We have to raise $1 million just to fight this thing. And there's going to be every Second Amendment group in California and national that wants to, pitch in and help. But combined, we're going to have to spend, I don't know, $1 million, $500,000 at least. But, depending on how far it goes, you got to be able to figure, all right, we got to raise $1 million on this, because these lobbyists for law enforcement completely sold us down the river. So I don't know, once this thing's illegal or passed and Glocks are illegal, maybe the first people who have to give up their Glocks are the friends, family, and loved ones of police officers and sheriff's deputies. Maybe they should be the first ones to give up their Glocks after this thing's passed. I don't know. Maybe that would wake some people up. But again, I want to emphasize, we're not attacking cops. We're not attacking the guys on the line who are, doing the good work. We judge each person individually by their character. But I am saying, if you are law enforcement, if you know law enforcement, that the message to their unions and their union reps and their government folks has to be, hey, I cherish my Second Amendment. You can't sell my Second Amendment rights down the river for a bump in retirement or whatever came with this deal that they struck. So AB 1127, the Glock ban, will most likely pass the Senate. It will most likely pass the Assembly. It's because the law enforcement associations and unions, caved and said, well, if it doesn't apply to us, then we don't care. So go ahead. We're not going to attack you for attacking the Second Amendment. That's the important thing you have to know. When it passes, we'll let you know. It won't go into effect until next year, likely. I mean, they could change it, but likely it won't go into effect until next year, which gives us time to raise money and plan and figure out, okay, who's going to, take the lead when it comes to filing this lawsuit. But there you go. That's the update, unfortunately, on AB 1127. I was really excited about this, Alicia. It went, it's such a bad thing. It went to the suspense file. Again, it got passed over even in the suspense file once. I thought this thing was as good as dead.
Yep.
So I don't know. What are your thoughts? What do you think is going to happen?
I'm not hopeful in a positive way. I honestly think that this is a very, as horrible as it is, I feel like this is a small step. This is them getting their foot in the door with the easy fight that they thought they had with the way the Glock can be modified to be made full auto in the way that they did. Because what happens is, if we don't fight this, there's the chance and the opportunity that most semi-automatics, if not all, can be modified in the same way, and then the same argument can go for anything semi-automatic.
Right, and they
they
don't care about that. They don't care about logic, and the point
I
is
feel like
to ban this stuff.
This was the easy one for them to think that they could go after. That those in politics that had some leverage would be able to fight and to maybe win, and that's what they did. They went after it, and now this opens the floodgates to anything semi-auto.
It does, and fighting this once it's in Sacramento is impossible. They're not going to listen to your emails and your phone calls.
Right.
Make your emails and your phone calls. But by the time someone is elected and they're in Sacramento, they've already got their mind made up when it comes to Second Amendment, firearms, that sort of thing. There's only two ways really truly to beat them, and that is to prevent them from going into office, which requires activism, or once it's passed, fund a lawsuit, which of course requires attorneys and donations. But once someone's in there, I mean, we could send 1 million emails today. We could make 1 million phone calls today, and it will not affect the people who are going to vote for this thing. Will vote for it whether you send 1 million emails and make 1 million phone calls or don't. This just isn't a situation where you're going to be able to change minds. So prevention is the ounce, and lawsuits it's really more like 10 pounds. It's like it takes like 10 pounds of lawsuits to be the cure for this thing. So there you go. There's your update on AB 1127. Unfortunately, I wish we had better news for you. So let's talk about 1791 Group. If your business is in the firearms industry, you've probably felt it. Marketing's expensive, social media is hostile, and it's far too easy to get lost in the noise.
The 1791 group fixes that. They help you to cut through the clutter by clarifying your message so customers instantly understand why they should buy from you. Then they build the systems, your website, CRM, ads, and content that actually turn interest into sales. And because they understand the community, they can even get your brand in front of our gun owners radio audience, which includes over 100,000 engaged gun owners every month.
Don't waste another dollar on marketing that doesn't work. Go to 1791group.com, that's 1791group.com, and tell them Michael from Gun Owners Radio sent you. Start growing with a team that's on your side.
The next off-grid comms class will be on September 20th at Cargo in El Cajon. You'll learn how to use radios, antennas, and mesh networks to keep your family, friends, or team connected when cell service and Wi-Fi fail. No experience needed, just bring your curiosity. This is hands-on, practical training that will give you the confidence to set up and actually use off-grid comms when it matters most. Seats are limited, so grab your spot now at gunownersradio.com. We have a new class, Survival Basics, September 27th at Cargo in El Cajon. Learn how to survive the first 72 hours after a natural disaster. Learn different techniques in how to store food and water. Organize supplies for fire and cooking when utilities are gone. This is our newest addition to our Prepared Protector series of trainings that helps you become a more effective first responder. Sign up at the Gun Owners Radio website. Pew Pew Crew, we've got a perk alert for you. Train hard, stay sharp, and stand up for your Second Amendment rights. Join the Pew Pew Crew on YouTube, our exclusive club for gun enthusiasts who value truth over anti-gun nonsense. As a member, you'll unlock premium content, get insider access to behind-the-scenes action, and support the only show that fiercely defends your rights with a side of humor. Sign up today and become part of the crew that's got your back. And this month, we're hooking up one lucky Pew Pew Crew member with a free month of the West Coast Kinetic Solutions membership. That includes free firearms training and courses, 50% off the San Diego CCW permit training, a free CCW renewal, free private classes and coaching, 30% off partner courses, free home defense training, and a threat assessment of your area with local law enforcement. So don't just sit there, hit that join button and become a proud member of the Pew Pew Crew.
Okay, California Proposition 50 is a measure that's going to be on the ballot November 4th, 2025, so right around the corner. It's actually a special election. It has to do with redistricting, specifically for the U.S. congressional districts in California. And looks like it's a personal project for our illustrious governor, Gavin Newsom. I don't fully understand the entire story, but it will definitely affect you if you're a gun owner. I can guarantee you that from what I've read and seen. So I wanted to bring an expert on to talk about it. So Assemblyman Carl DeMaio, who is leading the charge against Prop 50, is here to explain to us exactly what's going on. Hey, Carl, how you doing?
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me on.
You bet. So walk us through, maybe give us a little bit of history, why is this happening? What has happened? Where are we at? And then what the future is? Kind of take us through this.
So all California voters are going to get a ballot in the mail around October 3rd, 4th, 5th, just in a few weeks from now, a special election statewide on Prop 50. And it has a deceptive title on it, but the initiative would basically give politicians in California back the power to gerrymander, to manipulate the lines of their own election districts so that they get a personal or partisan advantage in the next election. Gerrymandering is bad, it is corrupt, it is awful, it is unfair. And that's why in 2010, the voters in California collected signatures and put a reform measure on the ballot in the 2010 election to strip the politicians in California of the power to draw the lines of the districts. And instead, the districts are drawn every 10 years by an independent commission made up of citizens randomly selected. The map cannot be drawn with any partisan criteria. The criteria are geography, communities of interest, Voting Rights Act, but no partisan or politician advantage. And the map has to be bipartisan. It has to, get enough support from the Republican commissioners, the Democrat commissioners, the independent commissioners. So it's a very open and fair process. It's produced maps that are competitive and reflect community ties. All of that would be thrown out the window if Prop 50 passes. The politicians would get the power back to manipulate the lines. And that's why we're urging a no vote on Prop 50. And Reform California is leading the fight to make sure that the districts are not manipulated. And if they are manipulated, two things happen. If Prop 50 passes, two bad things happen. Number one, the politicians get back the power to manipulate lines of the districts, and they will never give it back. They say it's temporary. That's a lie. Politicians never get back power when they seize it. And secondly, they're manipulating the districts in California right now to get rid of the Republicans. And so what you'll have is 5 less Republican members in California. And that means you're going to have a likelihood that the Democrats will take control of the House of Representatives in the 2026 election, which means the Second Amendment is once again on the chopping block at the national level from bad laws that they're going to try passing at the national level.
So what was the I hear a lot about, Texas did it, why is it different? In other words, playing devil's advocate, if Texas did it, why is it okay there and it's not okay here in California? What's wrong with that statement?
It's not okay in either area. I've been against gerrymandering no matter who does it, whether it's a Republican doing it for Republicans or Democrats doing it for Democrats, whether it's in Texas or Timbuktu. Never should politicians be able to gerrymander districts. It should all be done by citizens drawing the lines. Since citizens are the ones electing politicians, the citizens should also be the ones drawing the lines. That's the best way to do an election. And in California, we have the gold standard. We have the Citizens Commission. It's in our state constitution, put there not by politicians, put there by the voters. And that's why we want to keep the Citizens Commission by defeating Prop 50, voting no on 50.
That's so odd.
If Texas wants to draw their lines, the way they should do it is they should do it with the Citizens Commission. We should not be giving up our gold standard of citizens drawing lines just because Texas is doing something bad. That's, you learned in kindergarten, 2 wrongs don't make a right. Just because someone else is doing it does not mean that you follow suit. This is what the politicians in California want us to do. They're using Texas as an example to get the power back.
But wasn't there a lawsuit in Texas, though? It wasn't. They didn't just decide to do it one day, right? Didn't Texas? They were fighting a lawsuit, and something happened, and they said, "Hey, your districts are basically not diverse enough, something like that." Or is there,
yeah. Basically, the Texas Democrats filed the lawsuit, and as a result of them suing, they kind of hoisted themselves on their own petard. Now that Trump's in office, now they're saying, "Oh no, we didn't mean it." Well, the reality is a federal court ruled that the 5 districts in Texas were unconstitutional, and so they had to redraw them. And so, yes, it is a different reason why Texas is drawing the maps. But I wanted to answer your question directly,
Sure.
which is if anyone draws maps, it shouldn't ever be politicians.
Sure.
And so that's why we urge a no vote on Prop 50, and we encourage Texas to do a Citizens Commission when they redraw their map. But there's a reason why Texas is redrawing their map. They have to. California is doing it just because partisan politics, and that's not a good enough reason.
I think that's an important point, that really there's nothing was happening. California just decided, hey, we want the national government to be more Democratic Party, so we're going to redraw our lines and we're going to blame it on what's happening in Texas, even though that's a completely different situation. Now, how popular is this thing? In other words, are you seeing broad support in California, or how's it looking as far as popularity?
If you ask California voters, even in the blue state of California, who should draw the lines, 80% of them say the citizens, not the politicians. even when you say, well, but Texas is doing it, so we should do it. It's only a third of voters in California say, fine, let's redraw the lines. And 66% say, no, we shouldn't be redrawing the lines. The reason why right now the initiative shows a 50-50 split, it's very close, is that there's a misleading ballot title on this initiative, that Newsom and the Democrats are trying to mislead the voters with a false and misleading ballot title. They say, should we have a temporary map drawn by the and at the same time keep the Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission? We know that that's not actually going to happen. There's nothing in this initiative that keeps the Independent Redistricting Commission involved.
Interesting. So there's a real chance that we can defeat this. This is not a lost cause. In fact, in special elections, the right side of the political spectrum in California tends to do better. So there's a very real chance this can get defeated, right?
Oh, there is, as long as people get the information and are not fooled by that ballot title. Yeah. You know, I had a gas tax repeal back in 2018. They did the same damn thing. They took the title off my initiative, gas tax repeal, and they put a whole different title on it that confused people. So we do have to run a very aggressive campaign. And that's why I'm asking people to join us at defendfairelections.org. That's the website, defendfairelections.org. If you want to have a fair election in California, it takes people getting involved. Get off the couch, into the fight, defendfairelections.org. We have events up and down the state of California, lots in San Diego County, and we need everyone to get off the sidelines and into the fight at defendfairelections.org.
Okay, great. Defendfairelections.org. Need to get involved. I think Carl's the best source of information on defeating Prop 50. Remember, you want to defeat Prop 50. You want to vote no.
So yeah, it's a no vote. No vote on Prop 50.
So get all your friends and family and loved ones and coworkers and everybody you know to show up at the special election. They're not going to, we're not trained to go in off years in November and vote. So you have to train. You got to get them, and train them to go to the polls in November. Rather, fill out their ballot and return it in November. But then there's a lot of effort being put into this. So can you make a donation at defendfairelections.org?
Defendfairelections.org has donation opportunities, volunteer opportunities, and events. So we would love to see you at one of our events. If you can't volunteer or come to an event, just chip in a contribution. $5 is all it takes. Defendfairelections.org.
Great. Okay. Don't sit on the sidelines. Get involved. Help Carl and everybody involved defeat this thing. And I really think this is an important thing. This will directly impact how California delegates or congressmen vote on your Second Amendment rights, and we just can't afford that. We can't afford these ridiculous games they're playing. Carl, thank you so much for your leadership. Is there anything else that people need to know about Prop 50?
That's it. Tell your friends and family, vote no, because they're not going to get a fair title on the ballot.
Perfect. Thank you, Carl. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.
This is brought to you by Cargo, cases and rugged gear outfitters in El Cajon. Go to cargostores.com, buy something today, or visit them at 423 Broadway in El Cajon. There are two enemies of your firearms, rust and the government. The good news is Cargo has your back on both fronts. As a proud sponsor, they're helping us fight to get more pro-Second Amendment officials into office, and their rugged cases help you keep your firearms secure and protected. Built like a tank, Cargo cases are stackable, weatherproof, and ready for anything. Whether you're hitting the range or going off the grid, you need a Cargo case. Whether for your gun or other equipment, you need a Cargo case. And here's something that's just for our listeners. If you buy a Cargo case in the store at Cargo Rugged Gear Outfitters in El Cajon, just mention Gun Owners Radio, and you're going to get a free desiccant pack. And that's going to help keep your gear bone dry, battle ready, and rust free. Visit them at 423 Broadway in El Cajon. Great products, great prices, and uncommonly good service. Cases and rugged gear outfitters. Cargo. Check them out. Okay, so I've been getting a lot of feedback on this next thing. People are Very curious to know more about this. They actually have very strong opinions on it. What's happened is, and I'm gonna quote an ABC News. This has gone very mainstream. It started out in some conservative blogs and some conservative websites, but now it's gone very, very mainstream. ABC News is reporting that the DOJ, not the California DOJ, but the actual DOJ, the federal government, is mulling a rule that could restrict transgender individuals from owning guns. Senior Justice Department officials have held internal deliberations in recent days over potentially issuing a rule that could restrict transgender individuals from being able to own firearms. Two officials familiar with the discussions confirmed Thursday to ABC News. The policy discussions, which are believed to be in their very early stages and driven in part by chatter and right-wing media, follow last week's Minneapolis Catholic Church shooting that the FBI has said was carried out by a transgender woman. Okay, so there's a lot to be said on this. There's a lot of reasons this is a bad idea. There's not a lot of good in this, I got to tell you. And we're going to talk about a couple of different angles on this. And it doesn't matter, where you stand on trans issues. This is, whatever you think, if you're supportive of, if you're not supportive of, if you think they were born that way, if you think that it's an opinion, it's kind of beside the point. This is not a good idea on a lot of different levels. Optics of it look absolutely horrible. It looks like the right wing has taken over the government. They've got Congress, they've got the White House, they've got the Supreme Court, and now they're putting extremist views in after kicking out the extremist views from the left. They're completely eliminating an entire subgroup, of the population from owning firearms, particularly from a political party that claims to be the Second Amendment party, is just a bad idea. It looks bad. Culturally it looks bad. It looks hypocritical. But if you're looking at it from just a pure Second Amendment activist point of view, this isn't right. This isn't the right thing to do. And interestingly enough, I'm hearing from people that are, I would say, normally very conservative, and they're saying, hey, is someone going to make a statement on this? This isn't right. This isn't what we were looking to do. And again, it really doesn't quite matter where you stand on trans issues. It matters on where you stand on the Second Amendment. Unfortunately, they talked about how, there was chatter in right-wing media. What you're finding is people who are activists, who are talking heads on the right, who are not Second Amendment advocates. They may like the Second Amendment, but that's not their primary drive. Their primary drive is getting Republicans elected, or some other right-wing, right of center political issue is really their primary, and it's not Second Amendment. So they're using your Second Amendment rights as a political football. And I am opposed when the left does it, and I'm opposed when the right does it. I'm opposed when anybody does it. The Second Amendment is a nonpartisan issue. It's a right for everyone. It is a civil right. It is a natural right. So even if you completely disagree with transgender people, even if you find them completely and totally abhorrent, then it doesn't matter. You can't just take their Second Amendment rights away from them simply because you disagree with them. Frankly, you don't have to understand them. You don't have to support them. You don't have to agree with them. You just have to know that they have Second Amendment rights. So I got to tell you, I find people who want to take Second Amendment rights away from others just because they disagree with whatever choices they're making, or wherever they are politically, I find those people abhorrent. So what civil right am I allowed to take away from you? So one person I'm particularly disappointed with and describing is a guy named Charlie Kirk. Now, Charlie Kirk has, generally done some good work when it comes to promoting a lot of things, politically, including the Second Amendment, which he's talked about favorably. But Charlie Kirk is not a Second Amendment activist. He's one of the people I'm talking about who is a right-wing activist, and he has a lot of issues that he talks about, But he's not a guy who's out there promoting the Second Amendment and making sure that you have a Second Amendment for generations to come. Now, his tweet was, and we're going to show that on the screen, if you are crazy enough to want to hormonally and surgically change your sex, you have a mental disorder and you are too crazy to own a firearm. Charlie couldn't be more wrong. Charlie doesn't understand natural rights, or at least in this situation, he's willing to completely sell out his understanding of natural rights in the Second Amendment to further a political agenda. Charlie is not a Second Amendment activist. He's an activist, but Second Amendment is not on his top 10 list. He doesn't go and actually change laws and fire people up to prevent bad laws from happening when it comes to Second Amendment. Now, he is an anti-trans activist. I think that that's objectively true. If you look at some of his, past posts, and I don't care. I don't care where he stands on that issue. If he doesn't like it, fine. If he's got, an issue with it, fine. Don't care. Not looking to change his mind on that. But what I am looking to criticize him on is using my Second Amendment and your Second Amendment as his political football because he is an anti-trans activist. He's basically taking what you and I as Second Amendment activists have fought for so long and so hard, and he's taking that and saying, hey, great, I'm going to take this issue and I'm going to help leverage it to other issues that are more important to me, that I'm more vocal on, that I talk more about. And I completely disagree with that. Now, you can talk about it being a mental condition. I'm not smart enough to argue whether or not trans is a mental condition or not, but let's kind of explore that for just a little bit. There are a lot of mental issues. What if you're a narcissist? Everybody talks about today how everyone's a narcissist, whether it's somebody who disagrees with you politically or somebody that you just broke up with. It seems like everyone these days is a narcissist. Well, that's a mental condition. Do they get Second Amendment rights? Well, gee, Mike, no, we're talking about somebody who's crazy enough to have some kind of surgery on their, their sex organs. That's what makes them crazy. Okay, well, what about people who get circumcised? Oh, no, Mike, that's completely different. You're right, it is different, and so is being trans from a mental condition that should preclude you from owning a firearm. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at somebody who is suicidal, somebody that is actively suicidal, every person who is suicidal should not have a firearm, should not have access to a firearm. Every single person who's suicidal, should not have a firearm. A firearm is dangerous, in their possession or if they have access to it. Every single one. Is every single trans person dangerous with a firearm? Of course not. Absolutely not. Now, I understand that there has been an influx of mass murders where a gun's involved, and there is a trans person who's pulling the trigger. And I think that should be studied. I get it. But to say that, hey, you know what, all these people are mentally disturbed because I disagree with them or I don't understand them or both or whatever, therefore they should lose their Second Amendment rights. I remember back in the Biden administration just a few years ago when they said, hey, you know what, if you served in the military, you probably have post-traumatic stress, you should probably lose your gun rights. Now, gun activists were up in arms about that and said, no way, you can't take an entire category of people, particularly heroes like the military, then take away their firearms rights. Well, this is really no different. Whether or not you agree with them or equate them to military heroes or don't equate them to military heroes is not relevant in this situation. What is relevant is that there is a small group of people who have this idea of politically going after a group of people that they disagree with and selling out what they claim is a principle of theirs, the Second Amendment, in order to make a point. And we have to avoid those people. We have to educate those people. We have to make sure that, hey, you know what? You people don't represent the Second Amendment. Now, one thing that's really important here is this thing kind of caught fire. It started out as a couple of posts on some, right of center, websites, and now it's gone mainstream so that ABC and CNN and all these other groups are reporting on it. But the reality is there's no press conference that has talked about this. You know, there's no bill that's being proposed. There isn't a policy that's being written up or floated out there in any kind of official way. What they're reporting on is a conversation that happened between people who work for the DOJ, allegedly. So it's also important to understand where we are in the process, which is basically there is nothing yet. This is just a he said, she said kind of thing. And so it's important not to get too fired up. But I do think it is important to make sure that folks who are speaking out in favor of this get corrected, including people like Charlie Kirk. I don't have anything bad to say about Charlie Kirk in general. I think he's doing a good job. But I don't think that he is anywhere near right on this issue and should probably, hear from you. Hey, I like what you do, but on this one, you're wrong. I don't think he needs to be treated nastily or anything like that. But the Second Amendment is a natural right. It is something that each of us have because of nature or nature's creator, and that includes trans people. And I hope that I've, in a short time, explained succinctly and effectively why using the Second Amendment as a political tool against the trans community is a bad idea for a variety of reasons. And I hope that it goes away. I hope that they realize that the backlash is not worth it. In fact, if you look at Charlie Kirk's tweet, if you look at the comments, there are a lot of people that are basically saying, no, don't support this. In fact, the very first one is, so you do support stricter background checks and red flags. Great. Welcome to the gun control movement, Charlie. So not a good look, politically not good. And oh, by the way, legally, it's never going to pass. Even if it does pass, even if they float some kind of bill out there and it somehow makes its way through Congress and Trump somehow, signs this thing into law, it'll be pretty immediately struck down in court. So why are we doing this? Why are we even trying to do this? It doesn't make any sense. We, the Second Amendment folks, are the good guys. Let's make sure that we educate kind of that second tier of people who say, oh, I love the Second Amendment and I shoot and my grandfather taught me how to shoot one time, but they're not really Second Amendment activists, right? They have other priorities and they're just trying to use your Second Amendment to pass those other priorities. So I wanted to bring that up and I want to make sure, and I hope that you all agree with me. And if you don't agree with me, then by all means, write in the comment section why you think I'm wrong or what piece I left out or what's important to you. So Alicia, what are your thoughts on that?
The only thought that I had is first just to state, I absolutely agree with everything that you said in regards to protecting the Second Amendment for all people, right, regardless of where you stand on the trans issue. Absolutely agree with that. The only thing I would like to add is if there's anybody that lives in Iraq that doesn't know who Charlie Kirk is, I wouldn't say he's an activist, anti-trans activist. I think what's important to say is that he is an activist that comes from a viewpoint of looking through the lens of from a conservative Christian. That he has his thoughts and his opinions come from a religious viewpoint. And so that's kind of where he is coming from with his information and things that he puts out there. And so if you aren't familiar with Charlie Kirk, that's where his foundation is generally going to come from. So, but I absolutely agree. What it is regardless of where you stand, you have to protect these rights, because if we let the rights crumble for one, there's a way that we could be next.
I agree. Yeah, and I don't want to make this too much about Charlie Kirk. You're right. He's got, and he's done a great job. He's gotten a lot of young folks active and everything. I just think on this he's gone too far, and maybe he hasn't really thought this through as well as he's thought other issues through.
True.
The important thing, though, is here we cannot be the people that we criticize.
Right.
We can't be the people who take an important political issue and use it against people simply because we disagree with them or we're trying to one-up them. The Second Amendment is so much more important than that. It's not a tax cut, or some kind of extra, line item in a budget. It's your right to self-defense. And taking that away from people that you don't like or you don't understand or you think are bad is not the right maneuver. And it's not legal, and it's unconstitutional. So I hope that there are a number of people who maybe got fired up in support of this now can kind of take a step back and go, yeah, you know what, this is not a good idea. But I've definitely noticed that hardcore Second Amendment people are supportive of not doing this. You know, they don't like this idea in general. It doesn't pass the sniff test. There are a number of people that are kind of, they have this, by the way, there's this narrative out there that's like, oh, no. The Trump administration is playing 4D chess, and they're floating this out there so that it's kind of this red herring and people will concentrate on it, and they'll get the left to support Second Amendment, you know, because now it's for trans and that's different. There's this whole narrative on that. I don't believe any of that. I think that there was really a discussion in the DOJ where some people sincerely were talking about taking the Second Amendment rights away from trans people because they are trans. I don't believe it was some kind of evil genius, or not evil, some kind of good genius where they're floating it out there to confuse us all and they're 10 steps ahead of us. I'm not buying that narrative at all. So there you go. Definitely a hot topic. People wanted to hear about it. That's my take. What's yours? Leave it in the comments. Email us by all means. I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. But I hope that this struck a chord. I hope this was kind of a gut check of like, hey, how important is the Second Amendment to me? Is it so important that I stand up to people who I normally agree with in order to defend people that maybe I don't have as much in common with or don't have anything in common with? And I hope that you passed that gut check. I hope this was, this tested your mettle and you passed, you succeeded. So there you go.
So when you're using it on your firearms, because it takes about 3 cleanings, so I like to say it's a clean shoot process, much like seasoning a cast iron skillet. So you're going to field strip your firearm, break it down, and then you're going to put our product on piece by piece by piece, covering the entire firearm. Then you're going to take the barrel, you're going to clean the barrel inside of that, and then you come back and you wipe it all off, and you're done. It's that easy. Remember, seal one and done.
All right, fan favorite Stump My Nephew. Everybody loves Stump My Nephew. I love Stump My Nephew. We found out years ago that my nephew Sam is extremely good when it comes to gun trivia. He reads and watches videos and just absorbs information like a sponge. So if you send us some kind of gun trivia question and we use it on the air, we'll give you a hat or a shirt. And if you stump my nephew, then we'll give you some kind of special prize. But he doesn't get this question beforehand. The first time he hears it is when we read it to him live on the air. So he doesn't have any time to prepare, yet he still, gets at least, 90% of them?
Somewhere in the high 90s, yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Yep.
It's got to be in the high 90s.
Yep.
So he gets stumped every now and then, but it's few and far between. Sam, how's it going, man?
I'm well. How are you guys?
Good. How come we didn't keep statistics on how often you do or don't get stumped? We probably should have done that.
I don't know. I'm sure there's someone out there who's doing it, but
someone at home. If you're tallying at home, what do you think? Do you think your percentage is over 90%?
I don't know if it's over 90%, but I'm pretty certain it's over 80%.
So modest. He's so modest, and he's single, ladies. Just letting you know. It's okay. You ready for the question?
Sure.
All right, go for it, Alicia.
All right, Sam. So the question today, and it comes from a gentleman named Stan who lives in Santee. Question is, the Colt Army started as a cap and ball. After the Civil War, the first purpose-built cartridge Army revolver was the Colt Single Action Army, also known as the Peacemaker, officially adopted by the U.S. Army in 1873. What was the first caliber it came in?
First caliber that the post-war revolver came in, or are we talking the original?
The purpose-built cartridge, not the original cap and ball. So cartridge. After they turned it into, an actual cartridge, what was the first caliber that it was available in?
Ooh, this is tough. See, everyone who's a regular listener knows that I'm a little fuzzy on like pre-fixed ammunition and like early fixed ammunition, Old West type stuff. It's obviously not 45 long Colt because 45 short Colt came before that. And it was contemporary with 45 Schofield, but I don't know if 4440 is even older. I don't know. Because see, here's my thought process. back in the day before cartridges, U.S. Army revolvers were almost always 44 caliber, and Navy revolvers were almost always 36 caliber. And I know 4440 was a popular chambering for revolvers and lever action carbines. It was an early black powder cartridge, but I think that in the change to cartridges, there must have been some dimensional change in the ammunition, because like the smaller caliber went from 36 to 38, though part of that's a nomenclature thing.
Yeah. You're right. Caliber, the Wild Wild West was the Wild Wild West of calibers too. It was kind of this weird hodgepodge. Everybody that had a workbench of some kind was making up some kind of weird caliber cartridge, whatever.
Yeah, everyone was coming out with their own thing.
So what do you got? What are you
this
going
is
with?
tough.
What was the
really
original caliber cartridge of the original Colt Peacemaker, the Colt Single Action Army?
It's I want to say either 4440 or 45 short Colt, but if I say one, it'll be the other. This is really
pick something. Doesn't have to be one of those two, but pick something.
Some of them have multiple names even. I'm just gonna say 40.
What are you gonna say?
Wait. I'm trying to think through it.
I don't know if he cut out. Did he cut out? He said 40 and then stopped.
No, I'm still in. This is really kicking my butt. It's a good question. It's a tough question. People know where my weak area is.
It is a good question. I didn't think about it until, All right. Finally,
45 Colt. I'm just gonna say 45 Colt. I know that's wrong.
With the buzzer beater, 45 Colt. It was 45 Colt. Now, I had a question that I didn't really research. So yes, you're right, 45 Colt.
Mm-hmm.
Now
I thought it was going to be 4440, but you know what? I figured Samuel Colt was vain enough that he would want the cartridge. It would be a Colt cartridge. It would be a proprietary cartridge.
I think that's good thinking. Now, is 45 Colt, is that the same as 45 long now? Or is that different?
I'm not positive. Don't poke too hard at this, because I'm like,
because you can, I mean, it's 45 Colt's 45 Colt. I had a Peacemaker that was a Colt Peacemaker, but it was it was built in the 1990, 1991, something like that.
You know what? I can check. Give me a minute. I have a reloading manual in the bookshelf right next to me. I can look.
All right, we'll
stand by.
We'll edit this
stand
out.
By.
Got my beautiful London 51st
45 Colt. Well, I'll let you'll look it up. Sam, you'll look up the official answer, but while you're doing that, I'm using good old Google.
I was going to say I like that Alicia is using Google.
Lay Google, and Sam breaks out the paper.
Sam busts out a book. It's like reverse. Shouldn't it be the other way around? Shouldn't he be on his phone? He should be searching TikTok for it, and you should be,
breaking out the
rolling
out
a parchment.
Yeah.
And reading. Okay, go ahead.
So according to Google, and Sam will confirm or deny this, it states that 45 Colt and 45 long Colt are generally used interchangeably to refer to the same cartridge.
Okay.
So.
The Lyman manual confirms it. There was not 45 short Colt. There's only what people call 45 long Colt is 45 Colt. So it's starting to come back to me in dribs and drabs. If memory serves, people started calling it 45 long Colt to differentiate it from 45 Schofield, but don't quote me on that.
You're correct in that. Actually, the portion that I found reading on does go on to talk about that. And they also mentioned that the long Colt term was used to help differentiate and confusion with 45 ACP.
Nah, that's what I figured.
So just more of a designation to kind of help make it more obviously different.
Well, there you go.
And on the previous couple of pages is 45 Smith & Wesson Schofield. So there you go.
And it really, I think that's still the most, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're out there listening and I'm wrong about this, but what made this a bit of a trick question is 45 Colt is kind of the most obvious answer because it's the most common answer today. If you were going to go purchase a Peacemaker, and you found one used or whatever, if you went into a dealer and they happen to have 10 of them, I think like 9 out of 10 of them would be 45 Colt.
Yeah.
So they started with 45 Colt and continued with 45 Colt, which again, that's kind of what made it a good trick question, because you'd think that,
that it would have morphed.
Yeah, it
morphed
can't
and
be-
came from
Back,
something else.
back
Can't be
in
the
the
obvious.
days of
Yeah.
weird proprietary cartridges, it would have to be some weird proprietary cartridge, but
Yeah.
it became less weird and less proprietary. I really wanted to say 4440. I'm glad I didn't.
Oh, there you go.
So we start whacking the tally today with one for Sam.
There you go. Oh, yeah, all right. We can do that.
All right.
All right. There you go. 45 Colt. You got it right. Stan from Santee. You'll get a hat or a shirt, but you did not stump my nephew. Although you came really close. Buzzer beater Sam. Nice job.
So the thing I was talking about nomenclature changes when earlier revolvers switched to fixed ammunition. 30, what we call 38 caliber, is calling it 38 caliber is erroneous. It has to do with different ways of measuring and denoting caliber, and there are several different ways of doing that. Like a difference in caliber measurement is why Eastern Bloc 7.62 rounds have a wider bullet diameter than like 7.62 NATO. It's 311 versus 308 caliber. But so 38 special, for example, is actually a 356 or 357 caliber bullet. So it's really more properly 36 caliber, like they used to call them. And 44 revolver rounds, so 44 special, 44 Magnum, those are actually 429 caliber. So there you go. That's not useful information at all unless you're reloading, but there you go.
Of course it's useful information. Everybody's always talking about that. So that's perfect.
Press friends
Awesome
at
job,
parties.
man.
There you go.
Awesome job, Sam. You nailed it. You gave us the right answer, and you gave us a whole lot more information, and that's what we love about you. So good job. There you go. That's Stump My Nephew.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Thank you. So I wanted to talk about somebody who is no longer with us, somebody that was a really great guy and did a lot of really great things for San Diego County gun owners. He and his brother actually came up to me and said, "Hey, Mike, we noticed that you need help with your merch. When I started San Diego County Gun Owners, there were a lot of things I didn't know, and merchandise was definitely one of those." And Greg and Jeff Brady both came up and said, "Hey, we can handle it, man. We can show you how it's done. We can get your shirts and hats and glasses made, and we can house them, and we can send them out because we believe in the Second Amendment. We love what you're doing." For years, I would go see them a couple times a year, and they were absolutely wonderful to me, and they were wonderful to our members. And I got to know them a little bit, not as much as I'd like to, but I found out how active they are in the community and how loved they are, and just what great personalities they had. Unfortunately, over the 4th of July weekend this year, they were in the Colorado River with some friends and family, and 2 younger boys got swept away by a current, and both Jeff and Greg went to help them and make sure that they didn't get pulled underwater. And unfortunately, Jeff didn't survive. He gave his life making sure that those 2 boys could live. And that was no surprise to the people around him who knew him and loved him, because he was that kind of guy, to give himself up so that someone else, 2 others, could live. And I'm very thankful for being able to get to know Jeff, and I'm very saddened for the folks that he left behind. He was an amazing guy. He was an absolutely amazing guy who did amazing things and was extremely well loved. And I'm very happy to show that Assemblyman Carl DeMaio closed a session in Sacramento in memory of Jeff Brady, and we wanted to play that for you right now. So, in loving memory of Jeff.
Assemblymember DeMaio, you are recognized for your adjournment in memory.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise today on the Assembly floor in memory of Jeff Brady, who was born on May 14th, 1974, and died this past Saturday. Died on July 5th, Saturday, 2025. Jeff drowned tragically after saving the lives of two young boys who had been swept off a Colorado River sandbar by a rushing current. Jeff gave his life so that these boys would live. We recognize him today as a true American hero, a beloved family member, and a friend to thousands across the world. Jeff's story is similar to millions of Americans across the country. He was born into a modest, hardworking family. He played football through high school and had many friends at an early age. Jeff and his twin brother, Greg, worked side by side for the last 25 years in both apparel and MMA. Although Jeff never had children of his own, he was known as Uncle Jeff by almost every child he encountered. Jeff was just coming into the prime of his life, having found the love of his life, Ellen, and was preparing to settle down with her in their new home that he just purchased 2 short months ago. They were planning on spending the coming years caring for Jeff's blind father and enjoying family weekends at the river, which they referred to as their little slice of paradise. Jeff's life was cut tragically short when he should have been celebrating the nation's independence. Thousands of well wishes, donations, cards, and loving thoughts continue to be delivered to his grieving family. I ask that we honor his actions, those that he saved, his life, by adjourning this assembly floor this morning in his memory.